So welcome to my episode on RPGs I tried to like. And I want to state that again, I really tried to like these games quite a lot. Some of them are from the 90s that I played, some of them are from a couple of years ago. So it's kind of interesting. We got the past, we got the present, and I'll say this, I'll ask you guys, what are some RPGs that you were super hyped about, you were so excited about, you bought it, you brought it home, you played it, and you're like, this is not what I signed up for. I thought this was going to be a lot better. Tell me about a modern game and an older game. Let me know down below. So for my first game, we have to go back to 1994. Yes, and I just before that had picked up something, the Sega CDX. And I talked about that entire story with my friend Andrew and how we got Lunar, and I sold all my games to get this, and so did he, and he still holds it against me to this day, rightfully so. But I had this machine, I needed games, and as you know, I had Lunar, I was playing that. I liked working designs. What a company back then. They were bringing out all these JRPGs, translating them to some varying degrees, but we were still getting them, and I really, really appreciated that. And I finished Lunar, and I needed my next fix, and I was a younger guy, I didn't have too much money, but I went to my local video game store at the time, and I gotta say, I don't have a physical copy of this game, and I will explain why, because I didn't like it, and I got rid of it later on, but I bought a copy of Vey, by Working Designs again, for the Sega CDX, the Sega CD. I was so excited. This is another RPG, a JRPG on the system, and I took a gamble, and I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I spent $40 on this game used in 1994, and I'm like, you know, I'll take a gamble on it. And I didn't buy it new because I'd seen it and I thought, I don't know about this game, and you know, but I'm like, John, bring it home, listen to the music, watch the, the gameplay, we'll see what this has to offer. Let's see, don't judge it yet. Let's believe in this. And that's what I want to say with this channel. I always go in trying to believe. In 1994, I was trying to believe with Vey. And I brought Vey home, I plugged it all in, turned it on, and I was like, oh my god, this is not good. And what was not so good about it was the opening cinematics. First of all, compared to some other cinema games that I had been playing, like Ease and stuff like that, I was like, where is the detail? Where is the, the animation? And it had animation and stuff like that, but it was so simplistic, and the cinematics were so, like, missing detail. There was no detail, there's no lots of color shading and things like that. It was just lacking. And also, the voice acting was so horrendous. And yes, voice acting back then, in general, was not good, but this game took it to another level in my mind. I was like, I can't handle this.
But as the ceremony advanced, an insidious plot was unfolding.
I do so promise.
And do you, lady?
I do so promise.
And that was at the beginning of the game. I was like, how far into this can I get? How far can I go with this? And the storyline is kind of interesting. It's about this robot mecha that lands on the planet Vey, and it's split into 5 different parts because it's like this evil machine starts destroying everything. And so these wizards kind of split it up into different orbs, send it around the planet, and that's the end of that, or so we think. And then we're introduced to our main character who's getting married. Then all of a sudden, all these machines, mecha, start showing up, causing havoc. Another war is going on. You have to get to the bottom of it. You have to save the princess and make everything in the world good again. And you know what? I didn't want to do it. I was playing the game and I'm like, this is so generic. And I've said it about a few games in the past that I've gotten, some JRPGs. It was so generic. I was walking around. The music wasn't that inspiring to me. It was so generic. I'm like, okay, it sounds okay. Like, this wasn't evil music, but it wasn't good music. It wasn't music that was standing out like Ease or like even the Lunar series. I was like, oh, this is okay. And then, I'll never forget the first time I got into combat. And I had played Dragon Warrior 1, and I was impressed by Dragon Warrior 1 back in the day, right? In like 1988. But then I saw Vey, and I was like, this is unacceptable. It was so blah, so generic, and the enemies are on the screen, and I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. But I did pay some money for it. I didn't have very many games. I had hardly anything on the Sega CD. I had to make my investment worth it. I couldn't prove my friend Andrew right. So I kept playing the game, and I will be honest with you, I didn't like it. And I could never get with the program, and nor did I want to. Nothing about it ever sucked me into the game even more. In fact, it just kept pushing me away. And in fact, I just stopped playing the game at one point. I was just like, I don't like this game. You know, and it had AI combat. You just hit that and the battles would go for you. But it was like, it was done at that point. I didn't care. I was like, it's over for me. It's over for me. And I eventually took it back to the store. I bought another game and I traded it in. Probably got $5 for it at that point and all of that. But I didn't want it part of my collection. That's how strange it was. And I look back now. Do I want Vey on my shelves? The answer is no. I just don't care for it at all. I got no nostalgic memories of it. It was more like it's a frustrating summer buy from back then. I bought it and I was like, hey, this should be pretty fun. And it wasn't. It happens, right? It happens. So, yeah, anyways, I've got to stop talking about Vey. I've had it up on my wall to talk about for years. I'm like, gotta talk about how much I hated Vey and all of that. So, okay, we got that out of the way. Have any of you played Vey? I'm sure a lot of you probably like the game. I was not one of those people, unfortunately. Now, my next game is from 2021, so a more modern release, and one that I really should have done more research into. I really should have. I saw some screenshots, I saw a little bit of gameplay, and I thought, hey, I think this is going to come together. This is going to come together. It's by Square Enix. How could they fail me? They failed me, and I failed myself by picking up this game, and I'm really disappointed in it. It's really a disappointing game, especially it had music by the legendary composer of Final Fantasy, Nobu. Here we go. Dungeon Encounters. I picked this game up, I imported it. I was like, you know what? Look, this has every single thing that I could want. Old school style of dungeons right there. And I want to say I'm an old school Dungeons and Dragons fan. And back in the day, we used to draw our own dungeons, go through dungeons that were ridiculous, that would take us hours and hours. So I was getting that nostalgic feeling looking at some of the early screenshots of this game, thinking, this is capturing the Dungeons and Dragons feeling. And I think I'm going to have a really, really good time. I'm kind of glad they brought it back to basics. And then I realized what back to basics really was. This is such a bare bones game that I was playing it. I was playing it last week to capture footage, and I could not believe what this game was. And I could not believe that this got released. And for any of you out there that have enjoyed this game, I'm really happy for you. I really genuinely mean that you got something out of this game. I really, really didn't. I wanted to enjoy it, and I didn't. And so let's have a look at it. It's a very bare bones game, and I knew that going in. It's dungeon after dungeon after dungeon after dungeon, and I like that idea. But then I saw how it starts. You just pick your characters, and I'm like, okay, I'll pick these characters. Cool. And I'm going to say, I do like the profile pics of each character. I thought that was awesome. I'm like, cool, let's begin. And then I'm just walking across this grid, across this bare bones dungeon that every level looks the same because they are. And I'm like, oh no. But I'm like, John, hold up. Let the combat save it. Let the combat save it. I got into combat. The combat KO'd it for me. I was out. I couldn't believe how generic and how boring the battles were. You're just running around the grid, then all of a sudden, boom, combat's initiated. Your characters show up on this side, the enemy profile shows up on the other side, and it's just like they just move when you're attacking. And I'm like, oh my god, is this it? Is this it? Again? I was out, and I tried for quite a bit of time to get a little bit further, to get something out of it. but I felt like I was wasting my time. I'm like, there's so many better games in the world I could be playing than this. And I'm like, why am I playing this? Why am I doing this? And I'm like, because I'm a Dungeons & Dragons old school player trying to get something that resembled that. And I guess in a way I did. I got a really bare bones experience. But even Dungeons & Dragons back in '88 was way better of an experience for me than this. I was like, no, it's just not for me. It's not my style of game. And I tried to like it. I want to say that. And as for Nobu's music, I want to say it's okay. It's nothing super great. It's nothing that I was like, oh, I've got to listen to this later on or something like that. And I was like, maybe his best work is behind him. I think he's a legendary composer. Just don't get me wrong. But even in this game, I thought the music is all right. A little bit, eh. Anyways, dungeon encounters. If you're curious, go into the dungeon and find out. I found out, and I was not a happy guy. Okay, for my final game will be a controversial one in a lot of ways, but it's what I thought back in 2004. It is. This is what I thought. I didn't like this game, and I went in with so much hype. I was looking in video game magazines. I was seeing a little bit of gameplay online, and I'm like, this is my style of game. And I can't wait, because I had a GameCube. I was dying for games on that machine, especially RPGs. And this game promised the world. In a lot of ways, it definitely delivered. And it's not a horrendous game. I'm not saying that it is, because it's not. But it wasn't for me. And people are gonna go, they will not believe this. Batten Kaitos, right here. I know. I heard a woman scream in the back there going, no! I can't believe he would pick this. It's with a heavy heart that I do. It really is. I remember being at work, and every day me and my friends would be talking about this game and looking at the rendered graphics of this game. Looked amazing. And I want to say something, in capturing footage again, the game is gorgeous in so many ways, especially from a game from 2004. This was really ahead of its time. I want to say that the music as well is very, very good. The combat music is awesome. I really, really like that. I just couldn't get really into the characters. The storyline was okay, but what really did it in for me, I know you're gonna go, what? The combat. It seems to be the combat in all of these. Like, as soon as I get to combat, I'm like, what happened? And the thing that happened, for many of you who watch the show, you know, and I'm just gonna state it, I don't like card games. I'm not really a big card game guy. For anybody who enjoys card games, I think it's great. That's awesome. It's just they've never really done it for me. And especially taking card games into video games never worked for me personally, especially as the combat engine. And that's what this combat engine is. You get in there, you bring in your characters, and you pick cards. And yes, I really didn't like this idea. Love the combat music. I'd be running down like a hallway going, this is awesome. Get into combat, the music starts. I'm like, yes. My characters, I don't personally love the look of them so much. But then we get into combat and I'm like, oh God, what am I doing? I'm just picking cards, and I never, ever liked it. And I played hours of this game, and I was like, I'm out. And I can't believe that, really. And just some of the dialogue was so strangely laughable to me. And remember, there are things in this world that people must not touch.
In this world, there are things that people mustn't touch. Who cares?
Yeah, like that line. I always remember that line. I was always kind of like, oh my God, the cringe meter is high with this one. But you know what? This game has become a cult classic. And you know, I hung my head kind of low when they announced that they were bringing out a high definition version of both the games, because there was another game that was released as well that was kind of a prequel, if I believe, right? They're bringing them out as a high definition remaster. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to talk about Batten Kaitos, and everybody's going to go, like, oh, I can't believe he's hating on the game. And I'm not hating on the game, it just wasn't for me. I stated a lot of things that I really liked about it. What did you think of Batten Kaitos? Let me know down below, because I know there's a lot of lovers of the game. There's a lot of people. I was actually capturing some footage and I was reading some comments for the new high definition remaster, and everybody's like, oh, I can't wait, this is a childhood favorite. And I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. I'm gonna come in and talk about, all the reasons why I didn't personally connect with the game. But here's one thing about me, an interesting thing. I wouldn't do it with Vey, but I'll do it for Batten Kaitos. The one thing I'm gonna do is buy the high definition 1 and 2. I'm gonna do that. I am gonna do that, and I am gonna pick it up because I am nostalgic about the game and its presence in time back in 2004 when it was released. It was a big game, and I know it's a cult classic game, and it is to me. Even though I didn't personally love the game, I still have enough nostalgic memories about it that it warrants a place in cult history status for me personally, and I know for a lot of you out there. So that is there. So didn't hate the game by any stretch of the imagination, but I will ask you guys, is there any RPGs that you picked up and you're like, oh my god, this is not good? And especially one where everybody else seems to like it, but you don't. That's some of the games I talked about today. I had a lot of fun talking about them. So let me know what your picks are down below. So anyways, guys, until next time.